Here is the bio. Today, our guest is Miss Heather Fitzgerald, healing me softly, my bestie and business partner, superhero extraordinaire. Heather, this is her bio. I wrote this today, so bear with me, okay? Heather spent her early years in the Chicagoland area, but when she was 13, her family moved about 15 minutes out of the city because of safety concerns in their neighborhood. Growing up, Heather faced many challenges as her single mother worked multiple jobs to provide for the family. During her childhood, Heather often stayed with her grandmother until she was about 8 years old when her older sister took over the role of caring for her when her mom wasn't there. Heather started having premonition dreams about death and was sensitive to spirits from a very young age, which sometimes overwhelmed her. As a way of protecting herself, Heather believes that her connection to the spiritual world was turned off by her higher self, or at least turned way down by her higher self, around the age of 13 to protect her from being overwhelmed by the stress in her everyday life, accompanied with everything else she was receiving. At the age of 19, Heather discovered that a dark spirit was attached to her and spent some time working and praying to remove it. Once the energy left her, her spiritual and intuitive gifts returned stronger than ever before. Heather became a mother at 24 when she had her son Cameron, and later married Brian at the age of 32. In 2017, Heather became a director for Tupperware, for Tupperware, leading a team of 34 people that sold over $200,000 per year. That's amazing. That's like pink Cadillac territory. Know what I'm saying? Okay. I know that's Mary Kay, sorry. Heather's life changed dramatically in 2010 when she received a DUI and entered recovery. In 2018, Heather attended a Mind, Body, Spirit Expo after her father passed away, where she was able to connect with his spirit. During this interaction, Heather received her father's approval of her gifts, something she had not received while she was alive. This experience opened her up to even more clearly receive messages from the spiritual realm. About a year ago, and I was looking at this, Heather, I can't remember if it was a year coming up or 2 years coming up, Heather entered what she calls a spiritual slumber, or the dark night of the soul. She felt disconnected from reality and overwhelmed by past traumas, causing her to shut down and step back from everything in her life. During this time, Heather was forced to come face to face with many aspects of her childhood and young adulthood that were painful, but in doing so, she gained a great amount of insight into her triggers and desires for her own life, for her own future. Heather is now a successful small business owner and taking steps to create the life she desires for herself and her children. Although she and Brian are divorcing, they are committed to co-parenting and providing the best life for their children. Heather is also pursuing her passion for fitness by becoming a certified personal fitness instructor and hopes to teach her own classes one day. Everybody, please welcome in Heather for me.
Hi!
There you are, friend.
I'm here. Oh, sorry. See I'm in the car. I'm on a work break. But
So
I'm here.
how is it going at work?
It's fantastic. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. It is, it's going great. It's going good. I work with my cousin and I'm getting this, let me roll up my window. I sound like a crazy person talking to myself. Getting to work. Thank you guys so much with, my cousin, whom I love very much. So it's going well. I can't complain. Thank you, Penguin.
I am so excited. I've been talking about this all day with like everybody I know. So I'm so excited to be doing this.
I love it. I love it.
All right. So if you're ready, I'm going to dive right in. Okay.
Give it to me.
All right. So the first question I have for you. Oh, by the way, did you notice? Look, I can put my hair up. I can put it up.
Happy day.
Okay. Sorry, squirrel. All right. My first question for you. Can you share more about the premonition dreams and sensitivity to spirits you experienced as a child? How did these early spiritual experiences shape your understanding of the world?
So when I was 2.5 when I had my first premonition, and it was of my maternal grandfather's death. Naturally, when you think back about it now, it doesn't make sense that I was able to dream something like that, but that's just because my earthly logic has gotten in the way. Clearly you're most open when you're at that age, but Um, I honestly, at that age, I didn't think anything of it. It was more so how it was received from my mom. When you tell her, like, yeah, grandpa's gonna die, and he's gonna be wearing this outfit, and describing him to the T what his coffin looked like, and he was in a box, is what I said. He was laying in a box with like pillows, and he had his hands, and he was holding this like beaded thing on it. It was a rosary. I didn't know at 2.5 what a rosary was. Um, at that time, it was just like, okay, whatever. And then when they continued to happen as I got older, it was always like, oh, Mr. McManaman's gonna die. He's gonna fall, and he's not gonna make it out of the hospital type stuff. It was around that time when I got a little bit older that my mom was like, don't talk to anybody else about this.
Mm.
And don't entertain it anymore. If when you get those dreams, you could tell me, but don't talk about it ever to anybody else. And so it was very limited to what I even allowed myself to explore, because now looking back, that made me feel that there was something wrong with what I was receiving, because I was told not to talk about it. And as I got older, before, like, when I would start to feel spirits or sense them and try to talk about it, is when she really was like, shut it down and do not speak about it at school, especially because they're going to medicate you. They're going to put you in the hospital. You're going to be put away. You're going to be this. You're going to be that. Not to mention the fact that I was also raised very traditional Lutheran. And, the only prophecy that is allowed in religion is those religious people. So it was just very much so not to dabble in it, because it was also against my religious beliefs. So it just all felt very wrong to me to have these abilities as a child, because it wasn't accepted.
Yeah, I bet you. I know for me, so I don't remember specifically my gifts. I remember having conversations with people as an adult. Looking back, I thought I was just making it all up. But now with these new eyes that I have, looking back, I'm like, I don't know that I was making it up. I think I was having a conversation. But I can remember feeling like I would get in trouble if I kept doing it, or if my dad
Mm-hmm.
found out that I would get in trouble, and so I would hide it and then not tell anybody, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually it just kind of went away. Like, I don't remember a specific
Right.
totally gone. I can remember him telling me, I can remember him calling me a liar to my face when I told him some
Mm-hmm.
story. He called me a liar, and I can remember the thought of, oh, that's bad, and like, but I don't remember like a specific moment. Was it kind of like that for you, where it sort of petered out, or did it just like disappear?
Um, I don't know that it ever fully disappeared. I think I just kind of turned a blind eye to it, because um, I don't know. And you get this too, I'm sure, now looking back. I was very isolated, very introverted, because I didn't even have a mom who understood or wanted to even entertain the fact that, hey, I'm seeing people, and they're sending me messages, and they're telling me stuff. And what do I do? I didn't have that. So I think that you tend to kind of like, okay, I'm having it, but I'm not going to entertain it. And so you kind of put these blinders up, so that way, I don't know. But yeah, absolutely. I don't know that it ever went away. I just definitely stopped entertaining it and
Yeah.
asking for clarification, because I was like, you're not getting my ass in trouble. Oh no.
All
Mm-mm.
right. Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one.
I don't care whose grandpa you are. Mm-mm.
Right? Sorry. Okay, so
Sorry,
you
find somebody
mentioned
else.
you mentioned
I'm like,
that,
find somebody else.
right? Could you go be somewhere else, please? Goodbye. You mentioned that at the age of 19, you discovered a dark spirit attached to you and spent time praying to remove it. Can you describe that experience and how it affected your spiritual journey? And like, what did you learn from that?
Oof, I learned about that the truth about dark energies big time. That there is, when people say that they're haunted, that's real. That is real. There is such thing as being haunted by dark spirit. Um, it was probably the most exhausting couple of years of my life. I could not sleep, because literally every time I would go upstairs into my bedroom, I was shook, right? There was just this uncanny sense of it was an eerie feeling. And every time I would go to lay down in bed to go to sleep, it would literally come out of my wall over my head and get in my face. And I would freeze. I would not be able to move. I think a lot of it was fear. And then just not knowing what it was at the time. It was incredibly scary. She would just make faces at me and taunt me and say all different kinds of things. And that was the peak of my depression, I think, because not only was I exhausted, I'm getting emotional, sorry, being a woman of faith at the time, I didn't understand what I did to deserve something so demonic. Like, how terrible of a person could I possibly be? That this is my punishment. This is what I'm getting. This is the darkness, And naturally, that put that fear in me too. Of this is what your mother told you about. This is what she warned you about. Don't dabble into these energies and don't entertain them because you asked for this, Heather. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. I never would have asked for sleep torture for 2 years.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have. So at that time, I literally, and I found myself just repeatedly asking her to leave me alone. Please just leave me alone. Like, I'm just so tired. And I was already working full time at that time too. I was so tired, and without fail, every time I closed my eyes, boom, she was there, boom, she was there, boom, she was there. And then I don't know what happened one day, and it took a while for for it to fully stop. It's almost like she started to slow down. And I ended up saying, like, God, please help me, because she's trying to hurt me. And I felt it. She's trying to hurt me. God, come help me. I'm scared. I'm scared. And after a lot of prayer and just asking, like, please, like, I know that you're stronger than her. I know that we're stronger than her. I felt something like that little twinge of hope that I knew something in me had to be stronger than that attachment, and just give me the strength. Like, and I would practice closing my eyes and opening that. I mean, it was like a whole freaking process, man. But I feel now that I was guided to do the process the way that I was. Like, okay, you're going to say this, because, when you're receiving, it's not sometimes your own thoughts, it's because you're receiving information. And I wholeheartedly believe I received information, and they were just like, you need to command your power, and to basically tell her, back off, sprinkle tits. And I did. And then one day it was like, I actually slept a whole night, and I woke up and I was like, oh, I slept. Like, I slept. Okay. So it was a terrible, terrible time, man.
Did you ever receive any insight of where it came from? Like, anything like that?
No, I will say that I think it might have been in I don't know if it was in that house, or if it was from I honestly don't know. I would be making it up if I said I had insight. I really don't know. I know there's been a couple of times where I'll see images, or I'll get flashes of her again. So I know, I almost know that she's probably still around me, on occasion, that she'll rear her head up. But I'll be very, very honest. A part of me wonders if she's a part of me. I do feel that we all have dark and light in us. And I think that darkness sometimes, where I will say, like, I often will call it our shadow side. Okay. Our shadow side isn't always bad. You just got to know when to call on them. And so I started to really have this thought process, like maybe she's a part of me, maybe she was trying to build character, or maybe she was trying to toughen me up. I don't really know how to grasp it, because again, I still feel the way that I feared her was not something that I think would be a part of me. But now looking back, something that strong is most definitely strength that I want, but to use for good, not for
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
So if I could suck the darkness out of her and use that strength and that power for good, I'll accept that answer. But I'm really unsure wholeheartedly, like, where she came from.
Of course, it's interesting that you started talking about that, thinking maybe she's a part of you, because that's what I was thinking. I was going to ask you. I was going to say, is it possible, like I was thinking about this and I was wondering, is it possible that that piece of energy, that aspect of you, was where the overflow of anger and hurt and betrayal and all these feelings that you were experiencing because of all the traumas that you had been going through, if it got to be so much that Heather couldn't hold it, so it sort of morphed out into this other piece, and then spent time sort of taunting you and reminding you, here I am? Because if you had an entity made purely of those things, that makes sense to me that that's what it would do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just a thought process I had
Yeah,
when you said it. So I
that's,
was like, all right, well.
I
Hi.
mean, if you're, or you were thinking it before I said it, I you know how we do. So
Yeah.
it more than likely is the truth if it came from both of us. So
Yeah. It was just, it
that's my
kind of,
opinion.
it was, of course, just like we always do. I started to go, "Ugh," and then you said it, and I was like, okay, then I'm just going to sit back a little bit.
There it is. There it is. Right? Yeah, definitely.
So with that, do you feel like that experience gave you a sense of your own power, like how powerful you were once you were able to sort of reclaim control? Do you feel like it kind of bolstered your sense of power in yourself? Like, is it, I don't know why I feel like I need to ask that, but like, do you feel like it helped you see yourself in a different way, like a more powerful way, like you weren't playing the victim anymore, you were taking back control and pulling this back to yourself? Or was that something that just didn't really, I don't know.
At that time, at 19, trying to think back, I think it's probably a little bit of both, to be honest. I do feel like I felt like strong, like, yeah, I got that bitch to back off. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I got this. But I also think I was more than anything grateful to have peace that I hadn't had in a long time. I
Yeah.
think that's probably what I was more hyper focused on at that time, was like, ooh, I could come in here and lay down and not be interrupted. Like, this is great. I'm not being taunted. I'm not being scared. I'm none of those things, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Number 3. The Mind, Body, Spirit Expo you attended after your father's passing seemed to be a turning point in your spiritual journey. Can you elaborate on the connection you made with your father's spirit and how it impacted your perception of your own spiritual gifts? Like, what happened when you went there, and what was that experience like, and all that sort of stuff? Hi, Daddy.
Hi. Um, so I went into that Mind, Body, and Spirit Expo, and it was right after my dad passed. And I was just, I think it was another awakening. We go through several, just so you guys know that it's never a one and done. And I was lost. I was so lost, and I was ready to sign up for 45 different psychics just to be able to tap into my dad, because another fun fact, when you're very, very close to people, oftentimes they're hard to reach personally. You have to get an outside person to kind of help facilitate it. But I had gone, and this lady was starting to do my reading, and all of a sudden I smelt my dad. And my dad wore this beautiful, I don't know what the name of the cologne is, but it was beautiful. And I smelt my dad, and I was like, and I started to get a little bit antsy, and she was just like, she, basically told me, like, there's a male figure here, and then she said things that were just like that. What my dad would say, like, it's okay, sweetheart, like my dad always called me that. And I was like, what are we doing, And it was my first encounter with a psychic. So I'm not gonna lie, I was going even into that place, I was very skeptical. I knew what I was able to do, but you hear so much crap that um, I didn't know if I could trust it or not. So I smell my dad, and she tells me that he's saying it's okay, sweetheart, and I'm like, okay. And so as the conversation continued, and she told me basically, like, my dad too never believed any of my gifts, or that I was able to communicate on the other side, right? Um, he kind of basically said I was full of shit and I was lying, or how is it you don't remember that, you're you were too little to remember that passing, or that person, or that this or that, and I'm explaining all this to him. So um
Thank you.
long story short, that I already made entirely too long, thank you, um was that he basically said he now understood what I had been trying to tell him a couple of times throughout my life, about being able to speak to people on the other side, and that he now understands what it means and what I'm able to do fully and wholeheartedly, because the woman at that time, basically, because he was able to come through it, kind of on that end, he was equally excited to come through and be able to communicate with me. And so since he was able to do that, he basically said, just, you know, to go for it. Don't hold back. Allow myself to fully embrace this gift that I have, because it meant the world to him that he was able to come through and communicate with me. So he encouraged that I do that for other people. So that was a huge turning point in my, thank you very much, in my journey, because I always wanted my dad's blessing, right? And I don't know how anybody else feels with, like, any estranged relationships with parents, okay? But I had a really shitty relationship with my dad most of my life, okay? And it was always seeking and wanting his approval. Like, the man didn't even like the way I have naturally curly hair. Thank you. He hated that I had curly hair. Like, I could control that type shit. You know what I mean? And so it was just this constant disapproval from my father. And so to finally have approval from him over something that I have held on to since 2.5, with that first premonition, I really feel that it was just like I don't have to hide this anymore. I am who I am. And I need to let myself just freaking be.
I will, Wendy, as
She
soon as
will
I
on
see her.
Thursday. So I think it was a huge breath of fresh air to actually get approval, even in his passing, from him, earthly, that I was finally at peace with, okay, I can step forward in this and feel good about it. And
Yeah.
there's been no turning back.
I can't even imagine how. I can't even think of a good word. I was going to say liberating, but I don't know if that's the right word. But it feels like the weight of having a stone on your chest that suddenly lifted off, like you said, that big
Hugely.
breath.
Yeah.
All right.
Big
Okay.
time.
Number 4. You ready?
Let's go.
Okay. So let's talk about your spiritual slumber. I could not remember if it was a year ago this November or 2 years ago this November that it started. Just one.
No, it was a year ago. It started in June, and then it wrapped up around November. So it was in June was just 1 year.
Okay. So I was wondering, could you please describe what led to this period of disconnection and how you managed to come out of it, and what kind of insight did you gain during this dark time?
Oh, well, I'll say first of all that motherfucker sucked. Okay, I hated it, and it's almost oh, thank you. That's why we share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, So how did it start? It was about a year after I had asked, almost a year, however, I can't math right now, after I asked for the separation. And I I think I was just starting to like process and live my life. And I started working out and a bunch of different stuff happened. But the way that I tried to explain the slumber is if it were, I were physically here, I was physically looking at Erin, and I can honestly say now that we've had a couple of conversations about it, she was literally just looking at a vessel. She slowly became very well aware that I was fading. And when I tell you that I faded hard. Um, the person that you see on my workouts or at our dance parties or when I'm with Erin or when I'm with Jackie, that giggly, fun loving, in your face, tell you how it is, but with love. I will never say anything just to be mean, but that's who Erin met. That's who Jackie has known since we were 17. That's the person. That's who I am. The person you guys see every day is who I am. And I literally became opinionless. I became quiet. I became passive. I became existing, but not living, and barely existing. I just took a seat back. And the way I tried to explain it was as if though my physical body was here going through the motions, but spiritually I was somewhere else. But I don't even know where I went spiritually. I really think I was under construction big time because Erin and I had conversations that we talked about it not too long ago. She's like, oh, and it was just, we had this open conversation and I was like, I don't remember a whole lot of that time. I really don't. Like, I don't know what I did. I don't know what I said. I was doing my best to walk around and make everybody, hi, how are you? Very fake, very, hi, very robotic, because I didn't want other people outside to know what was going on. But as soon as they left the center, I literally went back to, I just sat. I literally just sat on the couch for hours and hours and did nothing. I did absolutely nothing. And all of a sudden, after I slowly started to fade in that way, all of a sudden I started to get hit and slammed with memories, not the good ones, painful, very, very painful memories of my childhood, of my teenage years, of the darkest, and then some of the darkest that they'll allow me to have remembered. I will say that they literally dropped it right back in my memory bank. And not only did they drop the memory back in my memory bank, they also made me feel it again. And they also made me watch it again as if I was a third person on the outside watching all of the shit that had ever happened to me. I had to watch it happen. And I had to feel it again as if though I was going through it again. And it was incredibly painful until it became beautiful. It ended up being very beautiful. I use the example because it's the one that I'm most comfortable using. Is when I was younger, my sister used to lock me in closets. Okay, when my sister had to take over for my grandmother, she hated it. My sister's only 4 years older than me. She didn't want to watch my ass. She did not. And that was an unfair responsibility that was placed on her. Let's be realistic. And I don't blame my sister for this. I'm not excited. I'm not going to high five her or thank her for it and crazy like that. But I don't blame her. She did what she did. And I've done so much inner child nourishment that it doesn't even matter. But she would lock me in closets. And just the one of the big memories that had come up when I was going through this dark night in my slumber was being locked in the closet. And how in the beginning I was terrified by it. I didn't know when I was going to be able to get out. I didn't know if I was going to have to go pee. All of these things just like all of a sudden just like drop back in. Like, do you remember how scared you were? And it was like, and it smelled in there because it was just everything ugly about it. And then a day or so later, I was brought back to viewing myself in the closet. And I actually saw her sitting there, swinging her cute little legs and kind of just, doodling on my, fidgeting with, not doodling, fidgeting with my hands, just sitting there. And I had the realization that she was safer when she was in there. And she didn't mind being in there as much as she didn't like it in the beginning. She ended up finding peace in that space because she wasn't being physically abused when she was in there. And that moment of peace that came over me, that's part of that nourishment of, but you're safe in there. Like, granted, like, what was the lesser of two evils? That became a safe space. It's almost like putting a dog in a kennel that's supposed to be their safe space, right? And I know that this sounds borderline ignorant, but it's the best way to describe it. That became my safety zone. That was a kennel for me, where I got to go in there, and I knew that for whether it was an hour or 3 hours, I wasn't going to get beat. When I had that moment of peace come over me, and I was able to look at, I'm not even kidding you, that moment of inner child nourishment when I went in there and talked to her, and she looked at me and she smiled and she was like, it's okay, I like it here. That was powerful. That was very powerful for me.
Was that the beginning of the end of your slumber, do you feel like when you had that moment?
Yeah, big time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. From my end, your slumber was very much, the best way I know how to describe it is kind of like when a star dies. When a star dies, it goes from sending out all this energy to all the energy kind of collapsing in on itself. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's kind of what it was like watching you. When we met, you were like you are now. And then, like, to me, as an outsider, knowing, you're a very private person and you don't share a lot about yourself. So, me on the outside watching this, I had no idea what was happening. I could not think of any reason why this would be happening other than you didn't want to be there with me. And it's not something you did to make me feel that or anything. That's where I was in my journey. But
it was just the unknown.
It was very much like watching a star collapse in on itself and just get smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm happy to say, though, like a star that collapses in on itself, you've had a supernova where you just explode out, and now you have all this wonderful quasar energy coming out. I just got super nerdy, sorry, but I can't hide the nerd. I can't hide the nerd. It's all out.
Nerd it up, girlfriend. Nerd it the fuck up. Nerd it up.
I want to say hi to my sister. I saw my sister sneak in here, and she's been liking the live. So hi,
Shannon.
All right. So as you pursue your passion for fitness and personal fitness instruction, how do you see your spiritual experiences influencing your approach to health and wellness? And I'd specifically like you to talk about how working out helps your spirituality. Like, how has that helped you to move forward and that sort of thing? Because I know there's a lot of people who feel very stuck sometimes. And I do firmly believe that moving your body is one of the best things you can do for yourself, not just physically, but mentally, because it gets your mind moving. So I'm really curious to hear how you envision your passion for fitness intersecting with your spirituality and how others can use that.
So yes, I do love working out. It makes me feel better. It puts me in a zone. It gets me out of my head for 60 to 90 minutes. Okay. Whenever I work out, I fully am just in that moment. I am present. It's kind of like meditation. For me, I'm wholeheartedly just in the moment and able to just focus on that. Don't get me wrong. I still have squirrely moments. Like a song will come on. I'm like, oh, wait. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, oh, wait, what were we doing? Let's get back into it. But it totally, even if that's just a fragment, it allows me to go somewhere else just for a little bit of time, right? My goal with personal training is, how cool is it wholeheartedly to be able to then say, I really am going to help you mind, body, and soul. All encompassing. Hey, you want to talk about your triggers? Hey, guess what? More than likely your triggers and or a clogged or off balance chakra, or why you don't have the energy to exercise. But guess what? If we exercise, we're going to start moving and get that energy flowing, and it's going to help you with this area. Oh, and then throwing in some of my counseling in there. Oh, you have low self-esteem. Were you an overweight child? Were you an underweight child? And it really, I could just see it becoming a full picture of mind, body, and soul healing. Like you got to get your ass moving. You have to move. Even if you don't like it, guess what? You may hate starting, but at the end of the workout, and you could say, I finished it today. Boom, that is such a great feeling. And then let's say you don't do it for 3 days and you do it again. And then you start to pick up another day. And then now you're working out 3 days a week. And now you're seeing significant changes in your body. And now oh my gosh, and your energy is through the roof because you're moving around. Holy crap. Like it's literally a trickle effect that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what I'm excited about.
Do you feel like working out is, you kind of said this, but like when you're working out, do you feel like your connection gets clear? Like you feel like like in the zone kind of thing, like you're moving this forward, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. And I feel like with working out, it's almost like my channel game is stronger because being energetically sensitive, like you and I both are, there are times if you're not able to let go of of that energy. I'm telling you, Aaron and I both, we'll be antsy as hell. We'll be like moving around and we're fidgety and we're jumping around. There were times in the center where I would I got to do jumping jacks. Like I needed to do something physically to get that energy moving. Or if you watch either one of us channel, I noticed this the other day watching her video and I'm late, but I showed up. Her and I both, when we're channeled, can't sit still.
Yeah.
We're rocking, we're swaying, we're moving. And it's because there's so much energy going through our bodies that you almost it's uncomfortable to sit still. Like you got to shake it off. You got to move it around a little bit. Why we do it, I logically don't have a reason other than I don't care. It's what feels right at the time. And if I can't sit still, then I can't sit still. I'm going to move because it gets to be too much when you're channeled. So you move around just to kind of keep shit moving.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even realize I'm doing it 90% of the time. But the thing is I know my connection, I know the reading or the connection is done because I feel like I can stop. Like I stop being compelled to move and I feel like I just sit back. That's my signal to myself that the reading is done. I sit back, my shoulders drop down and I'm like, okay, I'm disconnected now.
Yeah. Same thing when I do the alchemy on Saturdays. Like once I'm antsy and antsy and antsy, it will literally be like all the energy drains out of me. And it is that take a seat back moment. And it's like, I'm done. Yeah. I'm done. Like they're not only, and they're telling me I'm about to be physically and, emotionally depleted, but that's my way of spirit being like, you're done. Like, we're not going to give you any more information. And if you do, you're going to have to push really hard for it. And that's exactly.
Hi, Audra. So, speaking of, why don't you tell everybody what it is that you do, like the energy alchemy that you do online and in the center, and about the inner child nourishment? Like what kind of stuff do you specialize in, and where can people find you and all that sort of stuff? Like give us the rundown.
Yes. So Aaron and I have a beautiful partnership at the Wellness Center where we kind of we're capable of doing similar things, but we choose to use our gifts differently. I have gone through, and I say this jokingly, but it's also very serious. Addiction and inner child nourishment are my jam because I've lived through the fuckery myself firsthand. Okay. So that has become something that's very passionate to me, is to know and understand. I know and understand what other kids feel like who were abused. I know what alcoholics and addicts feel like because I too am in recovery. It's been 4 years now. In July was 4 years. So I have this, when I tap in spiritually, I am definitely not one of those, you can swipe a credit card up my ass and down my tits, shake me and get a yes or no out of me. I refuse to utilize my precious gift for anybody's entertainment. That's just my my way of doing it. And I would say that Erin is the same way. We're not going to be treated like a $5 fortune teller. It's not going to happen. We have too much respect for the gift that our divine has given us to be played like that, if that makes sense. Hey, proud of you, sister in recovery. I love that. We do recover. And so I make that my focus is with the inner child nourishment. What does inner child nourishment look like? I don't care if you say that your parents were loaded and you guys went on these elaborate vacations and you had the best life possible, and maybe you did. Okay. But to say that you never experienced trauma is the biggest load of bullshit that you could try to feed yourself ever. And so I want to encourage you that if you think you don't have any drama or bullshit, you're wrong. You got it on some way or another. I don't care if it was from Billy Bob Thornton when you were in second grade at the bus stop. You have some sort of trauma. It is what it is, okay? So if you don't fool yourself, you have trauma. I decided with the trauma is that I walk people back to those moments, times, and space. We go through a little meditation. I talk all of my clients down. And one we find, I call it the sweet spot, though there's nothing sweet about it. I ask different questions about different things. And when people become a client with me, this is not a one and done thing either. Okay. It takes time to go through counseling. It takes time. There's no way I can get it all done in one session. But I often ask my clients to make me a trauma list. I always say, I want you to make a list of all of the traumatic events that you have gone through. Thanks, Poonam. And I love to say your name, Poonam. We make a list. They provide me with the list. And as I'm reading the list, I ask them which one elicits emotion for them. Or I pay attention to their body language. And I'm able to say, okay, well, this is something. And then energetically, I'm also tapped in while we're going through this too. And then I'm like, all right, you have a pit in your stomach about this one, because that's part of my gift. I take on the feeling for a minute. I'm like, you have a pit and you're starting to feel nauseous with this one. What is it? Like, let's talk about it a little bit more. After we talk about it a little bit more, typically at a future session, one of those that triggers that emotion within them or that response is one that I'll say, are you ready to look at this? If they say, yes, I'm ready to look at this, again, we're only allowed, Erin and I can only tap into information that your higher self is ready and willing to allow us to tap into. So earthly, I might say, hey, Erin, are you ready to look at this situation? She'll be like, fuck yeah, I'm ready, let's go. And then I go to get in and her higher self is like, she's not ready. She's not ready. Okay. I do find that happens with some of my clients where we'll get in there, we'll get into the thick of it, and then I'll be ready to pull up the memory with them to have them again. I bring them back, time, space, and energy, where I ask them to look at that thing, whatever that thing was. There are times that they will see parts of it, but they can't see all of it. Why? They are not ready to witness all of it again. So we kind of work with what we have, and then it's a gradual process. And the next time we might go see a little bit more. We might be able to feel a little bit more. Not even going to lie. You hear a lot of people in the room who've known me for a while, and it's kind of become like an ongoing joke that I make people cry. Okay, they're like, watch out, she will make you cry.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So tell us,
I will make you cry.
Where can people book with you? When can they see you doing this? Tell us about your workouts. Give them the whole lay
All
down.
that good stuff. Yes, and then I have to go back to work. Okay, sorry. I'm glad that you're keeping me on task. Okay, so if you are interested, make sure that you send me a follow. There is a link in my bio. I have 2 different slots available. I think right now I only have the 30-minute appointment available. I do offer 1-hour appointments as well. You get more out of the 1-hour ones in the beginning, and I do always suggest the 1-hour ones in the beginning, except for the first one. The first one is kind of just, I want to make sure that my energy and your energy meet. So there's a link in my bio. If you follow me, go into my bio, you could do that. I also work out 6 days a week. I open up my room at about 7:45, 7:50, where we do cardio kickboxing. A bunch of people in this room are actually in the class with me every single day. We are seeing things moving and shaking. So you can always join me there. And then on most Saturday nights, I do live readings and alchemy healing too, where I tap in and I'll start to receive different messages about what needs to be brought to the forefront of your mind. I will say the funny thing that I do notice a lot, and no one has, not a lot of people will say anything, is there's nothing more that I love about what I do, and people earthly are in denial or in ego about it. And then they come, a few days later and they'll be like, I thought about it, and yeah, that's totally, you weren't wrong. Like, I was in denial, whatever it is. You just have to be open-minded. So Monday through Saturday, 7:50 a.m. cardio kickboxing. And then most Saturdays we do 7:00 p.m. healings and alchemy. And then I also do random little dance parties and stuff like that to nourish your inner child with Brandy, who's in here too. She's like my partner in crime with the fun stuff. So
well, she's your partner in crime in the exercise too. Like she's moving
in everything. Yeah, she's moving and shaking. She's getting shit done.
Yeah, she is. So she's an inspiration to me for sure. One thing I want to tell before I let you go, I just want to real quick touch on this because people who don't know us in person may not realize this about us. But yes, you and I couldn't be more complementary if we tried.
We're so different.
Heather and I,
when I say that, like, we're different. She's like, we're complementary. It sounds like
that's a perfect example right there.
Exactly.
I think, and I think you agree, but part of I think what works so well with us is because if you don't resonate with me, you will definitely resonate with Heather. And if you don't resonate with Heather, you'll definitely resonate with me. We're very, very different, but very complementary. Even our star charts, all of Heather's lines are on one side and all my lines are on the other side. It's very much it's a very bizarre thing. Like, you can even tell just looking at us, right? We're very different. But
I was just gonna say that, like, even our looks, like,
yeah. So I mean, we offer different things, but the reason we work so well together is we work with different aspects of you. Heather works with the inner child. She works with working on addictions and really self-empowerment. I once heard someone say that you need two types of spiritual teachers in your life, right? You need one type of spiritual teacher who's going to hold your hand and rub your head and talk you through some difficult things and really help you get through that. And then you need a spiritual teacher who's going to kick you in the ass and make you go through something you just don't want to go through because you have to. You have to be able to get through it. And this is the person who's going to kick you in the ass and you'll kick you over the finish line and be like, okay, good job, goodbye.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you I love your face. Me. I love your face more. Thank you so much, everybody in here. I appreciate you guys coming in. Even after I'm done, if you don't mind, keep on tapping her screen, sharing out her live, and give her lots and lots of love because she deserves it. She's badass and she's amazing at what she does. I'll see you later.
Have fun at work.
Thanks.